Here's the final episode of Wisley's Walks, which is all about vivacity, or maybe velocity. Vivacity is the quality of being lively and animated, and animation is what we're bringing to this map. Here's just Wisley's Walks for February. I'm not going to show all the months simply to speed up drawing for the demo. The backdrop for the animation is what I'm calling ghosted lines, and they provide a useful scaffold for the animation. They're symbolised from muted yellows to oranges for his more frequent walks. Looking at the attributes for the segmented version of Wisley's Walks from February 2021, the object ID starts at 18,233 and there are 1,965 individual segments for the 56 walks. I created a new field called P1 and copied the ID into it. Let's check the layer on and we can see Wisley's segmented walks for February using the same gradient fill line as I showed in episode 3. Now we're going to use ranges to animate the map. First, I open the layer properties and go to the range settings, and I've pointed the field to P1 from the attribute table, and the extent has changed to the range of the values in that field. In the range tab, we can see the minimum and maximum values are now mapped from the P1 field, and when I make the range active, the segments disappear from the map. I ensure the minimum and maximum range are set to 1 with a span of 0. And when I click play, the map iterates through the P1 values in order, and so we see a single segment one at a time. These are effectively time slices with individual views being shown sequentially. You can also see the range update on the range slider itself. Stopping the playback for a moment, there's actually another layer called Flashing Walks, and this is February's original unsegmented polyline layer. For each of the 56 walks, I calculated the maximum P1 value for the segments in the segmented version of the walk, and this value represents the last segment for each walk, so when the range gets to that value, the entire polyline will briefly flash, giving a sense of the walk finishing and being added to the cumulative map. So we point the range property to the max P1 value from the attribute table of the layer. We turn on the layer and we go back to the range tab and press play on the animation again. Don't blink, you'll miss it. There it was. Now for the last step, we're going to animate, and we're going to use a technique called stop motion, which is going to speed up the movement of the segments to a rate that the eye sees as continual movement. On the animation tab, we'll add a timeline to the view, and we'll add a keyframe with the rangefinder set to the start. We'll then go back to the rangefinder, and we're going to change the range to the end value. Back to the animation tab, add this second and final keyframe. And finally, I'll set the playback to a duration of about 10 seconds, and then head to the Export Movie pane. And from here we can specify whatever format we wish. The only thing that I'd recommend is that you ensure that in the file export settings, the frames per second is set to 30. Now actually I did this for the entire year's worth of walks. I made a 20-minute video. And here it is, with a few additional elements I added in using video editing software to create a feature-length film of Wisley's entire year's worth of walks. There's a monthly timeline across the bottom so you orient yourself during the year. There's a counter that continually shows Wisley's cumulative mileage. And there's also a temperature chart in the top right that gives context to the average daily temperature that affected his walks, since that was a key feature. And there's a few labels that briefly appear to pinpoint places like shops or parks. There's a title, there's some broad information, and there's a block of text that changes month by month along with the calendar and temperature focus to explain some of the facts and interpretations. You'll see the map change from March to April at about cumulative mile 43. It runs to 20 minutes. But we can blast through it the whole year in one go, and we end up at a total of 1,332 miles covered. That's basically 330 miles per paw. He kept his owners fit and healthy with all his walking, and we've enjoyed having his company 24/7. And with that, I'll thank you for joining Wisley and I on our walks, and many different wizarding ways you can make maps of coincident data.